Hello and welcome to Loving Me, Myself, and Life with me, Jody Misiak. And today I want to talk about something I just experienced myself, and I feel like I kind of have here and there, on different occasions. And it's this emotional tug of war. I find that I can actually be happy with where I am and things like that. And at the same time, I can be sad. And it's this emotional tug of war that goes on, right? Like if you've experienced it, you kind of know what I'm talking about. And I'm laughing because it's not really funny, but it happens. And, we can just, emotions can have a way of just kind of swooping in when we least expect it. So I'm just going to share about what happened. I was cleaning up my closet. I had a few bins of clothes that I actually thought they were all summer stuff, so wasn't too rushing to put them away, but I decided to. And turns out there was more than summer stuff in there. But anyway, so I'm just like cleaning up, tidying up my closet and hanging new things, kind of organizing, getting it in really good shape. And just certain clothes just brought me back. It, triggered memories and emotions that I wasn't even aware I was feeling. And it was just like a wow moment. Like I was just hit by a wave of sadness. And I was like, whoa, like where did you come from, sadness? So, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you'd be aware that, my family and I moved. In September, we moved across the country from one side of Canada, middle of Canada, Ontario, all the way to BC on the coast. And I absolutely love it here. I wouldn't change a thing other than I kind of wish my family could move here too. So sometimes, there's, pros and cons to having family close and far away. I'm kidding. But there's this sadness where it's like, I haven't seen them since September. Well, actually, it would have been the end of October. Yeah, because we flew out here on the 1st of September. So I didn't see them since the end of August, sorry. The end of August. It was since the end of August. And I just had this huge rush of emotion creep in. So I'm like, here I am happy, living everyday life. Like right now, as I'm recording this, I get to look out over the mountains. The sun is shining today. We did have a little light dusting of snow. Actually, we're below normal temperatures for this year, but it was just, it's amazing and it's gorgeous. And my daughter gets to go to school and spend like most of the time out in the forest. It's like a temperate rainforest, and it's fabulous. And I really feel at home here. For the first time in a long time, I feel perfectly in place. And I feel like the kids are thriving, like even though with everything going on and, my son wasn't able to go to school this year because they don't do junior kindergarten. And there was a little bit of that, but like everything seems really good and I'm happy and I feel really at peace. Until I remember that my family isn't just a short car ride away or, that I get to experience this in hand. Like with everything kind of going on, you kind of forget sometimes that because of lockdowns and just different things, I kind of let life get busy and distracting me a little bit of the emotions that were underneath the surface. Now, I said these emotions kind of come out of nowhere, but obviously they didn't come out of nowhere. They're clearly something I have underneath the surface. And hopefully as I work through them, I'll share more with you. But just know that if you're happy and you're enjoying life and all of a sudden you get sideswiped by some emotion that you weren't even aware of, it is totally okay. It is normal. And the old Jody, the person before, like over a decade ago, before I really stepped foot on my self-love journey or even knew, man, when I stepped on that journey, I didn't even know what self-love was. Like it wasn't even a thing, or if it wasn't, there was no real label when I first started, or at least if there was, I didn't know about it. However, I was starting to build a relationship with myself for the first time in my life. I was finally starting to like get to know what really made me happy, what, you know, what made me tick, like what was going on, giving myself some extra love, learning different techniques like meditation and yoga. And man, was that a learning, on its own. I would beat myself up for not being able to meditate right. Things like that. It was a constant up and down and all around kind of thing. However, years ago, like that person no longer exists. That person back then would have felt these emotions, and I might not even have cried. Like I had a good cry. Like as I'm, putting all my clothes away. Actually, I took a pause. I didn't keep working. I felt them. I just sat there, and it's a sense of mourning. I was allowing myself to, for like every so often I get these waves of feelings. And I clearly have not mourned the loss of the life we left in Ontario, where I could drive to family instead of flying to family. Well, I guess we could drive too from here. However, it would be a very long drive. So I can't, just, visit them on the weekend or here and there. So I had to mourn that. And it doesn't mean that mourning one thing or feeling sad about one thing doesn't mean I get to enjoy where I am now. Because like I said earlier, I wouldn't change it. I knew moving, I had to work through some emotions of leaving family further behind. And it's like, giving up the closeness to family to moving into a lifestyle that my husband and I really honestly have been talking about for so long. And as we're in winter here, and like I said earlier, there was a light dusting of snow, which we haven't really seen much of. It's that nice little reminder. And I've talked about it in other things like Gabby Bernstein calls like driftwood, where it's like little nuggets of like reminders almost. Maybe this wasn't what she had in mind for driftwood, but it's these little reminders, gentle nudges of life that kind of just remind us why we did what we did. So I had those, sad feelings over the weekend, and then it snowed lightly, and we're kind of like we're 5 to 10 degrees cooler than normal. And actually we're having quite the mild winter here. So, my son just goes out in sweaters all the time. That doesn't happen usually where we move from. However, like it snowed and it reminded me like this is why. One of the reasons why we moved. I would hibernate for months, and I didn't want to live my life like that anymore. I wanted to enjoy more mild winters with a lot less snow and not having to plan everything around snow. Now, if you love snow, that's totally cool. But it just was something I personally needed to change in my life. And same with my husband, actually. We both weren't very in love with snowy winters. It's just a personal decision we had. So anyways, kind of getting off the point. We made a choice, and I can't speak for my husband, but I can speak for myself. I am very, very, very happy about the decision we've made. However, sadness does creep in place sometimes. Like I wasn't able to see my family over Christmas or celebrate my grandma's 90th birthday. And now, that being said, I don't want to go too much into details of worldly events and life awesomenesses that are happening right now, because I want this to be a place of inspiration and motivation and a place to escape from the everyday cray-cray. So I don't want to go too much on it, but like even if we didn't move, I have to remind myself I wouldn't have been able to spend time right now with family. That being said, it doesn't make it any harder being miles and miles and miles apart, and almost feel claustrophobic, or like this sense of, maybe not claustrophobic, that's not the right choice, but this sense of not being able to kind of thing. So, this inner battle, this inner tug of war of like, I'm happy, but I feel sad. And like I mentioned earlier, not the person I was, because if I was, like I said, I wouldn't have cried. I wouldn't have paused and really, let it out. And even I probably would have been like, no, 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 I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Like, I made this choice, I'm happy. And I would have just continued on that path of like, no, 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 I'm bottled up the sadness and bottled up whatever other feelings would pop up and just pretend to be happy about everything. The thing is, we're allowed to feel. And I've talked about it in another episode, emotions, feel them. It's okay to be happy and still be sad about something. Different relationships, there's so many different things we mourn throughout life, the ends of life, of relationships, of jobs, of just different events that happen in our life. And it's so important to feel them. At the same time, it's important to enjoy the life we're living right now. When I first started on, maybe not first started on my self-love journey, but part of it was when I was definitely doing some inner workings, or I stumbled upon the beginnings, maybe. It wasn't really, not sure maybe we won't label it. However, when I started really reading a lot of self-help books and things, and I came across the movie The Secret, I really went, all in about this whole, like, what you think you create kind of thing, and positive affirmations. And I had this thing where it's like, if I feel sad, or if I feel angry, or I feel anything but happy and positive, that's not good, that there's something wrong with me for not being able to think positive and happy and all those, like, what we, put in the basket of like good emotions. If I didn't stay on that spectrum, something was wrong with me. I couldn't control my emotions. The thing is, we're not meant to control our emotions. And I know I'm saying like other things I've been in like there's another episode about emotions, because I feel like it's something it's really important to talk about, especially right now where, emotions can be heightened with the different changes and struggles that are going on. And it is so important to know that you're not alone in this. And it really isn't meant to be positive all the time. Like, don't get me wrong. It is amazing to have, think positive, wake up in the morning, have positive affirmations. And, I'm a very optimistic person. I try to look at things half full. However, like, I had those feelings come over me, wash over me, like this crazy just wave of emotions. It's not meant to be, pushed down or kind of covered up. They're meant to be felt. Now, obviously, if you're feeling them where maybe they're at work, or maybe in front of somebody you don't feel comfortable, sharing in front of, or it doesn't feel like a safe place, then maybe hit the pause button if you can. I don't know if I would have been able to hide my emotions anymore. Like, I very much, I have a lot of less guards up these days. So I usually, when I feel. But that was not always the case. Like, I know there was years that I didn't cry. Because I felt nothing, or at least I pretended to feel nothing, or it was so underneath the surface, or all I felt really was anger. Like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I talked about anger a lot in another episode, where it's like, if we're angry, we're hurting somewhere. So it's just being mindful of how you're feeling, of what's showing up, and honoring them. And, it is important, I think, to be optimistic about life, but that doesn't mean that when something upsets you or comes to the surface and says, hey, pay attention to me, that we should ignore it. And, I definitely had like a healthy release of emotions and just let myself feel the sadness that I felt, that I, feel the feelings of not being able to hug my grandma, on her 90th, and, see family. I am very, very family oriented. And that was one of the reasons that my husband and I didn't move sooner than we did. I had to really go through some some deep love and some deep soul searching and things to understand like what, that inner battle. Like you talk about emotional tug of war. I had that even just for the move. And is it fully resolved? Absolutely not. Am I missing my family? Absolutely. And, I love the fact that the internet is here and we are all so much closer to each other than we have ever been in our lives, really. It's just, it can be tricky. It's, you can't hug a computer. So if you are feeling feelings right now from a sense of, being isolated or, just being away from people, maybe you can't fly. Here we have travel restrictions. In theory, it's not against the law to fly. Anyways, it's just, but there's restrictions right now in place. And, we're allowed to feel those things. We're allowed to feel angry at the situations in front of us. Obviously, try not to take them out on the wrong person. And obviously, I have some releasing, some feeling, some letting go to do of my own. Normally, I don't really like sharing before I resolve something, but I think it's necessary at this time in the world and in life to really be open and honest with how I'm feeling and what's going on behind the surface as it pops up, and just let you know that if you're feeling this too, you're not alone. And wow, the emotions, can run high. So if you find yourself at tug of war with your emotions, it's really about honoring yourself in there, your feelings, and know that like you can feel sad about something even though you're living a wonderful life. Like maybe you're living your dream life. Like it's so incredibly it's amazing how you can be so happy and just be still feeling sad about some things in your life. It is totally human nature to have feelings. So embrace them, love them, and hopefully I can share more along this route, this path, because I'm in it. I haven't, worked through all of it. However, I did allow myself to feel what was showing up, feel, I felt myself missing my family. So honor you, honor your feelings, and love yourself where you are. And just know that it is okay to feel and to have this inner tug of war, and share it with somebody, journal about it, and take some time to just be present with yourself and to feel, and know that this too shall pass. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bye for now.